Okay, so today I'm just going to do a video where I talk about how to follow the storyline in Revelation. What I've talked about in other videos is that the way Revelation is actually set up, it's a series of visions that are not necessarily placed in chronological order, and that each of the visions is kind of its own little story. And so a lot of times what we need to do is take pieces from each little story and be able to find out where they go on a timeline. So I've done this on numerous videos in the past, and in some of my more recent videos I've talked about the day of the Lord, when the wrath of God begins, how to identify where the sixth and seventh seal go, which are when the sun goes dark and the moon turns to blood. Also the seventh trumpet, I haven't talked about that recently, but what I'd like to do is just look at a couple passages so you can see that the seventh trumpet is what brings everything to a close. The first time we read about the seventh trumpet is actually in Revelation chapter 10. This is when the mighty angel puts one foot on the land, one foot on the sea, and this is when glorification happens, glorification and resurrection of the dead. This mighty angel has a scroll in his hand, and he says something very interesting. What he says in Revelation chapter 10, verse 6, he swears by him who lives forever and ever that there should be no more delay, but that in the days of the trumpet call to be sounded by the seventh angel, the mystery of God, as he announced to his servants the prophets, would be fulfilled. So the mystery of God that's going to be fulfilled is everything that God has revealed in the book of Revelation. Okay, the Revelation is the mystery of God. So when the seventh angel sounds the trumpet, all the events that have to do with trumpets 1 through 7, the seals, and so on, are all going to be over. So we read that seventh trumpet and the events associated with that actually in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15. The seventh angel blew his trumpet. The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. He's saying that it's happened. With the seventh trumpet sounding, this is all over. The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he'll reign forever and ever. Go down to verse 18. The nations raged, but thy wrath came, as in it's over, thy wrath came, it's past tense. And the time for the dead to be judged, for rewarding thy servants, the prophets and saints, and those who fear thy name, both small and great, and for destroying the destroyers of the earth. So with the seventh trumpet, Christ begins his kingdom. That's when it starts, right here, seventh trumpet, and the time for the dead to be judged, and all of that is going to be happening right here. Okay, seventh trumpet. On another video, I showed how the sixth trumpet takes place right at the same time as the abomination of desolation. Okay, the second woe. The sixth trumpet is when Mystery Babylon is destroyed. We followed this word, an hour, the hour, day, month, and year that God has established for the time for this present world system to be destroyed, the harlot Babylonian system. And it's at that same point in time that the beast and the 10 kings destroy the harlot. Okay, God has put it in their heart to do this. And so that's what's going to happen at the sixth trumpet. And it's at this same time as the abomination of desolation. On another video we talked about how the time when the sun and moon go dark and turn to blood and the stars fall from the sky, the sign of the Son of Man appearing, and the stuff that we read about actually in Matthew 24, the sixth and seventh seal. That's what the sun going dark and the moon turning to blood is all about. And it's about the events that are going to happen just before the day of the Lord. So the sixth and seventh seal actually take place just before the bowls of wrath, at the time when the day of the Lord is going to begin. And remember, the day of the Lord is actually the beginning of the millennial reign, which starts out with darkness and not light. It's going to be bad for people on the earth, but the day of the Lord is going to come in like a thief, which is how this is going to start. And then we're going to have the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ. And at the end of the millennium, according to 2 Peter chapter 3, everything is going to be destroyed. The earth and the heavens are going to be blown up in fire, and God is going to create new heavens and the new earth, and that's called the day of God. So I've gone over that in a lot of other videos, and it's also in my timeline templates, which is a PDF that I've done. The link is in the description box. I'll also leave the relevant links to the videos that I've done that talk about some of these other things. So basically what we've already done is we've established when certain seals and trumpets happen. That the 6th and 7th seal is right here between the 6th and 7th trumpet. So what we know is that the seal visions and the trumpet visions layer over one another. And that is a very Hebraic way of doing things when information is layered. Okay, so the visions of Revelation oftentimes can be layered over one another, where you take pieces from the different visions and you can put the pieces on a timeline. You know where the different pieces go. A lot of people are wondering, okay, about what's happening at Lapalma, for example. And there's this volcano there that if it keeps doing what it's doing and it gets worse and worse, that it's possible that part of that island in the Canary Islands of Lapalma, part of that could slide into the ocean, create a tsunami, which would wipe out the east coast of the United States. A huge population of people live there on the east coast of the U.S., and that would kind of effectively destroy the United States and any standing we have on the world stage. Okay, that would pretty much do it in. And we know that the United States doesn't really have a place in end time prophecy. What we see is the Middle East. We may see parts of Europe. We see the kings of the East, China, rising, and a lot of the Asian countries and the Islamic nations are going to ally themselves together, and they're going to actually be the sort of police force of the world. The United States will not exist the way we think it should. So what about Lapalma? In my book, A Kingdom of Priests, which I published in 2019, actually talked about this, the Canary Islands and Lapalma, and how the second trumpet of Revelation chapter 8 might actually be Lapalma, that it could be the volcano that's currently erupting over there. So let's just take a look at Revelation chapter 8, verse 8. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire, which sounds like a volcano to me, was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Well, if a tsunami was created that had that kind of an impact from, Lapalma, causing part of that island to fall into the ocean, well, yes, you're going to have a lot of the ships destroyed in the Atlantic Ocean for sure. And, a lot of the creatures are going to die. And there's stuff that, could be very detrimental to the earth, as well as something that's not mentioned here. But this would effectively cause the immediate decline of the United States. Okay, if this tsunami hit the east coast of the U.S., there goes Washington, D.C., and I realize there's a contingency for the United States, continuity of government in Colorado, but even still, the place that the United States has on the world stage would go away. Now, before this event can happen, you actually have to have the first trumpet, because even though these things aren't written in chronological order, they are sequential in that trumpet 1 has to happen first, followed by trumpet 2, 3, 4, until you get to the 7th trumpet, which is at the very end. So we're actually told that these things are not going to be out of order. They're going to be sequential, but they don't necessarily happen in order, one right after another on a timeline. And that actually is pretty obvious. Here's the 7th trumpet here at the end. And the 6th trumpet happens actually 1,260 days we know exactly how much time there's going to be between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. It's 1,260 days or 42 months. Okay, it's during the time of the reign of the beast. That's between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. One of the other things we also know is that the trumpets have to happen after the 24 elders are in heaven. Okay, so the 24 elders are going to be in heaven before any trumpet is blown. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. I will prove to you that that's the case. However, the 7 angels who have the power to do all these, they're already present. They stand before God, okay? The 7 angels who will be given the 7 trumpets to blow are in God's presence. They're in his presence even now. They're there. Okay, but the 24 elders are going to be in heaven before that time comes when they're given trumpets. They aren't going to be given trumpets until after we're in heaven. I'll show you that in a minute. But they'll be given their 7 trumpets. Over here, they have the power to do it, to destroy the earth and do all of that, especially the first 4 trumpet angels. But it's not until they get their trumpets that they actually do the deed, that they actually have permission or authorization to blow those trumpets. So we know that trumpets 1 through 5 have to happen before the 6th trumpet. And we know that these angels are not going to get their trumpets until after we're in heaven. And like I said, I'll show you that in a minute. So trumpets 1 through 5 take place after we're in heaven. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to separate out trumpets 1 through 4, and we'll put the 5th trumpet in a separate place. Okay? This is called the first woe. This is the second woe, and this is the third woe. So the Bible itself distinguishes these particular trumpets: 5th, 6th, and 7th, first woe, second woe, third woe. So the first 4 angels are actually the ones who have the power to destroy a third of the land and the sea and the trees and so on. And they are actually described for us in Revelation chapter 7. Starting with verse 2. Then I saw another angel ascend from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God, and he called out to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm the earth and the sea, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or trees until we've sealed the servants of our God upon their foreheads." So actually in this chapter we have a total of 8 angels. 4 are holding back. They're standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth. These are 4 angels who are on the earth, holding back something from the earth. And then there are 4 other angels who have the power to harm the earth and the sea. Those are the trumpet angels. Those are the ones who are actually in heaven, who have power to do this, but they haven't been given their authorization to do it yet. And this is Christ actually here as the angel of the Lord, who is God. He's God's messenger. He's on the earth. He's getting ready to seal, or the 144,000. He has the signet, the seal of the living God. He's the eldest son who can have that authorization to seal the 144,000, and I believe that's sealing them in the Holy Spirit. And he's going to be using people who are glorified on the earth to do that. And that's over an 8-day period of time when we are going to be assisting Christ in doing that. I talked about that in another video, something about the stars, we're the stars in Jesus' hand, or something like that. And between the time that they're sealed and the child is caught up to God and to his throne, this is the child who rules, as pictured by the kings and priests we see in Revelation. There's going to be 8 days. The 7 angels who stand before God are already here, and 4 of them have the power to harm the earth and the sea. The question here is, do the seals come before trumpets? Are seals opened before trumpets are blown? All right, so let's go back to Revelation 5. I know this sounds a little confusing, but that's because Revelation is not easy to decode. Okay, and you have to think about it in a different way. You have to think about it as being pieces that are more like puzzle pieces that you have to take certain ones out and connect with other things, and you can't really understand the book of Revelation as far as knowing where to put things until you kind of know the whole book, because you have to have kind of all the pieces before you can actually put the puzzle together, if that makes sense. So let's take a look at after the kings and priests are in heaven. This is the child who rules, is going to be caught up to God and to his throne. And we see 24 elders who represent kings and priests. They're seated in God's presence, in God's throne room. And we read that the Lamb is there. He takes the scroll. So Revelation chapter 5, let's start at verse 8. And when he'd taken the scroll, that is, the Lamb has gotten the scroll now, so you can't open seals until you have the scroll, right? He's taken the scroll. The 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp with golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints, and they sang a new song. Worthy art thou to take the scroll and open its seals, for thou wast slain, and by thy blood didst ransom men for God from every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us a kingdom and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. All right, so there's a lot of things that are going on here. Christ has the scroll in his hand, finally. 24 elders, that is believers, people who are going to be assisting Christ, people who assist him during his rule and reign, are already in heaven. They have crowns. They're given crowns. They're going to cast them before the throne. They're sitting on thrones, which tell us that they are people who are going to rule. They also are worshipers. They have a harp in their hand, and they're going to sing a new song. And they have golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Okay, so you want to keep all those things in mind. These golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints, are going to show up in Revelation chapter 8. We're going to take a look at that in just a minute. But what happens when we go on in reading Revelation chapter 5, we're going to see that there's all kinds of angels and so on who are going to join the elders in this worship of Christ. But what's funny about this worship that we see are the individuals, the entities who are worshiping Christ and saying that he's worthy. And what we're going to see is that this worship doesn't necessarily take place right after the Lamb receives the scroll, that this worship is something that may be connected with something further down the road, like maybe even the 7th trumpet or right around that period of time. Let's just take a look at this. Verse 11 of Revelation 5. And then I looked and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads and myriads and thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. They're describing the worthiness of the Lamb. And remember, in Revelation 11:15, we read, The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Okay? Here they're saying, Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. And I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all therein saying, To him who sits upon the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures said, Amen, and the elders fell down and worshipped. So here's the deal. When is every living creature in heaven, on the earth, under the earth, in the sea, and all therein going to worship Christ and say that he is worthy to receive power? Well, it isn't going to happen right at the moment when he takes the scroll. That's not when the dragon and the false prophet and the earth dwellers are going to say, Oh, Christ, you're worthy to reign. They're not going to say that at least until the 7th trumpet. So this event that we read about here is projecting way into the future when Paul says that every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. That does not happen at the moment that the Lamb takes the scroll. So what we know here is that we've just gone out of order. Okay, we've seen the vision of Christ taking the scroll and being worthy to take it. And then at the end, everybody is going to say that he's worthy to take it. So where does the narrative, how do we pick up where the narrative is? How do we pick up the storyline? Because we sort of lost it down here when we get to where everybody is worshiping the Lamb. Well, if you take a look at Revelation chapter 5, verse 8, and we see them, 24 elders, holding harps. They've got golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Let's go to Revelation 8, verse 3. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to mingle with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. And the smoke of the incense rose with the prayers of the saints from the hand of the angel before God. All right, so the angel is taking the prayers of the saints, which the 24 elders have offered or are offering, and he's going to mingle more incense with that, more prayers, and it's going to be on that golden altar. This is where the story picks up. Okay, the story that started in Revelation chapter 5 continues over here, and it's the incense that's sort of the thread that links these two together. So the 24 elders are offering up prayers. There's an angel who stands before God. He's going to take those prayers. He's going to mix them with more. And then here's what it says. Verse 5 of Revelation 8. Then the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there were peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Okay, so there's this angel who stands before the altar of incense. Okay, and he's going to take his thing of incense and he is going to throw it to the earth, and there's going to be earthquakes and voices, flashes of lightning, peals of thunder, and so on. This is all going to be phenomena that is going to be associated with that period of time. If there's an earthquake, it means it happens on the earth. You don't have heaven quakes, they're earthquakes. So that phenomena, what is the angel with the bowls of incense and the censer, what's associated with him are earthquakes and so on, which happens after believers are in heaven, those who are going to rule and reign with Christ. Now let's go up to verse 2 of Revelation 8. Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. So we have 7 angels who stand before God. And it's not until the kings and priests are there offering up their incense that these 7 angels are given the 7 trumpets, which is basically how they're going to announce the things that are happening. And the first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, which fell on the earth, and a third of the earth was burnt up. A third of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Okay, what we're going to be reading with the next 4 trumpets are a third of the earth is going to have stuff done to it. Okay, and I believe that it's basically the same third of the earth that's going to have all of this stuff. And I think that the first 4 trumpets are going to be blown, like it could even be within minutes of each other. It's not going to be prolonged over a long period of time. And it's going to be very shortly after believers are in heaven. So the first angel blew his trumpet. There's hail and fire mixed with blood. The second one is something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. This could be that volcano that's erupting right now in the Canary Islands. And if this continues erupting, there continues with the earthquakes and so on, eventually when this earthquake right here is triggered by this angel with the censer, it's very likely that what will happen is the hail and fire mixed with blood, may even be what is being thrown out of this volcano or being thrown out of volcanoes that are erupting in various places on the earth. I don't know exactly what that is, that there's hail and fire mixed with blood which fell on the earth. This isn't something that necessarily has to come from the sky. It can come from the earth being blown up into the atmosphere and coming down as hail and fire mixed with blood. Okay, and then you can have something like this great mountain, which is, that's on fire, this volcano, and then it's thrown into the sea. You have this gigantic landslide then, which causes a tsunami. A third of the ships would be destroyed and the creatures in the sea would die. And then it talks about a great star falling from heaven, blazing like a torch, falling on the rivers and fountains of water. The name of the star is Wormwood, and it's very likely to me that this could be a nuclear event that happens that causes the waters to be made where they're not drinkable. Fourth angel blew his trumpet. A third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars. So a third of their light was darkened, and a third of the day was kept from shining, likewise a third of the night. So what happens basically is now we have all this stuff in the air, all the ash from the volcano. It makes it so that it's very dark during the day, and it makes it so that you can't even see the moon and the stars at night. It grows very dim. And I think all of these things have to do with both volcanic eruptions that are taking place not just in one place, many places, but the effects are going to be such that I believe that the United States, the Western Hemisphere, is going to be primarily affected by this. And the reason I say that is because the Middle East, Europe, Asia, all have parts to play during the end times. So that's how we follow the narrative on the story here. And the first 4 trumpets are going to happen almost immediately after we're in heaven, almost immediately. Now, what about the seals? Okay, we've got trumpets 1 through 4. The 5th trumpet we know is when the Apollyon is going to come out. He has to come out before the abomination of desolation. Then we've got the 7th trumpet down here. We've got 5th and 6th seal right here. We also know that the 5th seal martyrs are killed by the harlot who's drunk with the blood of the saints, and the harlot's not destroyed till here. So the 5th seal martyrs are on this side of that destruction of the harlot. And what that means then is that seals 1 through 4 are going to take place overlaying trumpets 1 through 4. And seals 1 through 4 are in chapter 6 of Revelation. And that's when we see the white horse whose rider has a bow, and he's given a crown. And he goes out conquering and to conquer. That is, he is going out to subdue and to be victorious. So a lot of people will think that this is someone who has a bow with no arrows, but you don't have to say bow and arrow in order to know that the purpose of a bow is to shoot the arrows. If you're carrying a bow, it's assumed you have arrows. And if you're given a crown and you're going out conquering and to conquer, it's assuming that you're going to be subduing by force. Okay, and I know there are people who say that this is a guy who's coming out in peace. The only reason people say that is because they want to attach him to an antichrist in the book of Daniel that they want to attach to the 70th week of Daniel, who confirms a covenant which is all about peace. Okay, so just sort of put that to the side here. What we're actually seeing is someone who's coming conquering and to conquer. And you do that. He's doing that through force. Okay, he's coming to subdue and to triumph over his enemies. He is given a crown, which means he doesn't have one at that time. He is going to be permitted to wear a crown, and he's on a horse. And in the Bible, if you're riding a donkey, that's the animal of peace. If you're on a horse, that's the animal of war. And here he is. This is the seventh king who is going to be given a crown, and he's going to begin to ride. And what will happen is when the first four trumpets are blown, there's going to create this huge power vacuum in the earth, okay? Because a third of the earth is going to be subjected to the results of the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and all of that are happening. And now it's time to consolidate power. We don't know who that seventh king is. We have no idea. We can guess, but we don't know. We don't know who the rider on the white horse is. All we know is that this moment in time, there is someone, this person, who is going to be what I think is the seventh king, who's going to be killed and then come back to life again and be indwelt by Apollyon and be Satan's false son. This is when he begins to ride. And remember, the seventh king is only here for a little while. He's not here for 3.5 years. He's here for a little while. He will start to ride, and he will start to conquer. And he's going to use force to do it. And he's going to do it quickly. Horses are fast animals. And then the second living creature says, come, and there's going to be a bright red horse, and peace is going to be taken from the earth. And then there is going to be famine with the black horse rider, and death and Hades. And a fourth of the earth is going to be affected by this, by the sword, the famine, pestilence, and wild beasts of the earth. So we have a third of the earth being affected by the trumpets, and we have a fourth of the earth being affected by this rider on the white horse, the famine, the war, pestilence, and so on. It's not until we get to the fifth seal that we read about the martyrs of the harlot. And according to Revelation chapter 2, there's 10 days of intense persecution, during which time these people will be martyred. But we can expect martyrdom to happen really, any time before that, because the harlot is here. Okay, she's here right now. And she doesn't like Christians. She's anti-Christ, and she is going to kill Christians right up until the time when she's destroyed right here, partially destroyed. There still will be vestiges of her until the very end. I know this gets a little confusing, but the narrative in Revelation is not a straight line. You have to find where the pieces are and put them in place and find where they go. And it's a lot of back and forth. And I know a lot of people don't like doing that. But if you're someone like me that loves a good mystery, I hope you can see how the trumpets are actually going to be the things that happen before the seals. They're going to happen and basically overlap one another. But it's this great earthquake that the angel sends to the earth. And I think it's that earthquake that's going to initiate this global destruction that is sort of being primed right now all over the earth. That when this earthquake happens, that it's going to set off this volcanic chain of events, and you're going to have the hail and fire and that's mixed with blood that falls on the earth, a lot of fires being started. You're going to have this mountain creating this tsunami. You're going to have, I believe it's possible that wormwood is a nuclear weapon that's going to be used by somebody. And the fourth angel is, when he blows his trumpet, there's this cloud of ash and destruction that goes over the whole world. So it makes it so that nothing can grow. And that's part of what's going to cause the famine that we read about with the third horseman of the apocalypse, that black horse, wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not harm the oil and wine. So the oil and wine are what the rich people have. They have that in their bunkers. They're all storing things up against this day that they know is going to happen. They are aware. Some of this will, some people will say, oh, this is coming from outer space, and it may be, asteroids or what have you. But what's going to instigate the whole start of the trumpet thing is going to actually be this angel at the altar of incense who mingles incense with the prayers of the saints, of believers who are already in heaven praying for other believers on earth, other believers being the 144,000 among those believers that are on the earth. I know that for some people this is like, yeah, this isn't even fun, and why is this so hard? But for others of you, I know you'll be able to follow this and to be able to sort of take apart the visions and put different pieces of the visions in places where they belong. Okay, so the seal vision actually goes from when the Lamb takes the scroll up until just before the day of the Lord. And then after that, it's the wrath. It's the 7 bowls of wrath. It's that 7th seal when Christ opens that all of a sudden the bowls of wrath are poured out. And then at the 7th trumpet, that's when Christ returns to the earth and everything is over and he begins to reign. So this is how the timeline actually works. And you can actually tell the story now about the events and the people that are in the book of Revelation. A lot of people, when they teach Revelation, it's like you have all the seals and then you have all the trumpets and then you have all the bowls and one coming out after the other. That's a very Greek way of looking at it, but it's not the Hebraic style, which is a layered style. Okay, when you're looking at something that's written with symbols and imagery, what we're looking at is something that's actually going to be layered, as opposed to something that's going to be chronological and orderly and logical and rational. That's why there's a bunch of layers here in this story in the book of Revelation. And I didn't write it. I didn't write the book, okay? So I'm just trying to decode it for you. And the thing is when you do this, you have to make sure that there's no contradictions, okay? That you can see where everything fits and that there isn't any contradiction in how you've lined it all up. So far, I don't think there's any contradictions in how I'm seeing things here right now. Bottom line here is, could Lapalma be the 2nd trumpet? Oh, the answer to that is yes, but we're not going to have that until after we're in heaven. And we don't have to have any of the seal events taking place before that takes place. So we could actually have those 4 trumpets taking place first, up through the third of the light from the sun, moon, and stars going dark, and then the first 4 seals take place of the white horse rider, peace being taken from the earth, and so on. But I have a feeling that once this giant earthquake happens and these events associated with the first 4 trumpets, which I think will happen like just hours and days apart, they'll be very close. Immediately after that is going to be the seals, the rider on the white horse, and on down the line. God said that when these things begin to happen, they're going to happen really quickly. It's not going to be over the course of 7 years. It's going to be condensed into a very short period of time. And so, yeah. So we're just looking at from the time that the child is taken into heaven up until the time of the 6th trumpet, we're just looking at a matter of months, okay? Just months, like less than 8 months for all of that to happen, maybe even less than 6. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave a comment. We'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.